Hey guys, welcome back. BDC Air here. We're back with our Q&A&T videos. This is Season 4, Episode 6. This episode has been brought to you by Alberto Jr. Camarillo, who continues to support us on Patreon at the Last Word tier. So that's that there, but also he's gonna read us out at the end of the episode for a little bit of a sneak preview.
Ooh, this is the first time I think ever in how many years where it's been somebody else reading us out. But
yeah, but I'm excited. He's earned it.
Yeah, true.
So there we go. Getting into our first question. This comes from Nevermind, and they say, should I use damage and health augments for my online team? Will it make online harder or easier using Arkham Origins team at the moment?
So the answer is it depends. And I guess it's every once in a while it's worth revisiting. Some things that seem obvious to us because we've been playing for a long time isn't, because we are always having sort of new players coming on.
Yeah.
And I want to point out, actually, because Injustice Gods Among Us isn't as transparent as Injustice 2 as far as having a threat level obvious. You can't tell where the brackets for matchmaking start or where they stop.
Yeah, it's a sliding scale. There's not an obvious, like, you're in whatever tier of characters.
Right, so we have to make a best guess based on how hard the fights seem and how many battle points you get. So the longer answer to your question is, the short answer was it depends. The longer answer is if your specific team is already facing maxed out opponents, so they're level 60, elite 10, max augmented, then adding damage and health augmentations will make things easier. Mm-hmm. You're already facing the max, they can't actually put harder opponents up against you.
And the other thing to consider, potentially adding them for, is if you are facing not the hardest opponents, but you're not quite getting max battle points yet. There's a really wide range where you will be, but if you want to play with a team that's getting sub-max battle points, that's an example of a time where the health and damage augments might actually help you.
You see our team, we're already getting the max battle points. To me, it wouldn't make sense to augment the health because we're not always facing max teams. We're level 50, elite 5. So, yeah, for almost everyone else, too, the augmentations will make your opponents harder. The key, really, is the damage and health is taken into account with Matchmaker, but critical chance and critical damage boost are not. So those augmentations are the most useful. They don't affect matchmaking, but they will improve your fight.
And I mean, there's an even more subtle and nuanced version of this, which is that depending on if you know what you're going to gear somebody out for, or you know what kind of role that they're filling, you can have a more unbalanced character to have them better at the one specific thing. So if you've got somebody that you know is going to be a tank, you can have a better tank if you just do their health. Because for their total points, they've got a higher proportion in health, and so they're going to work better as your tank. But then you're losing out on the damage that they would normally do while they're in. They're going to deal they're going to deal less. So there's a lot of kind of other factors to consider.
Right.
So simply because we play characters in different contexts as new gear comes out, we don't always keep people in the same roles.
Yeah.
And because also it's a lot of work to actually augment a guy. Just even putting the cards on them takes a while.
I'll say that if I'm going to augment either damage or health, I would pick damage.
Yeah, almost every time. I was thinking the specific example where you wouldn't. I know for almost everybody else, we would be just doing damage because everybody else pretty much whacks people. Unless you've got a tank specifically, you don't. We would probably not do health if we weren't doing both.
Right. And the other point to make too is, besides augmentations, gears and passives that boost health or damage, as long as it's all damage and not just basic or just specials or crit damage, boosts from gears and passives are taken into account with matchmaking. So the most obvious example you get would be with the dark side that's available in the challenge pack, is unfortunately might be the next challenge again. Not the good dark side. That's what I like to call him. I call him not the good dark side. He's great if you're early and you want to take advantage of bronze, but you can see that when you play dark side with 2 bronzes, when you play them, they get matched against the team as if those bronzes
had their stat boosts already applied to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it sucks. So I guess the long answer is maybe there's a bunch of different factors, and the short answer is it takes time to augment them in the first place, and you really have to think carefully about who you're going to if you health or damage augment. So we just don't do it at all. It just almost never makes sense. And with power creep, eventually you're gonna have your guys be crappier and facing harder guys earlier, even after the augments.
And there's no benefit if you're already hitting 5,000 battle points a fight. Although now that you mention it, part of me wants to just augment them all on damage, and just see,
a little bit. Yeah.
Well, just to see what, or maybe bring somebody that's weak. The problem is the Flashpoint team is so good for just grinding fast. So
I mean, we've got enough of them. There's a chance that we might find a good character to augment damage on. That might be an every once in a while thing, but it's not good enough to be a consistent choice to make. Yeah. So it was just the kind of, to let you make the decision. We're probably not going to make that decision though.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from Adegoke Adedara, and they say, "Can you promote an Injustice 2 channel that do what you do?"
Ooh. Short answer is really no, unfortunately, I guess. Honestly, I watch very little YouTube.
And I watch a lot more YouTube, but both of us have in common we watch very little Injustice content on YouTube.
It's true.
And by very little, I mean I don't watch any. I don't know if you watch any.
Every once in a while I will, if somebody points out something that's supposed to be interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if somebody comments, it's like there's, this person's got some useful tidbit or something like that. I'll be like, okay, I'll see what they're talking about, but
I'm usually disappointed. I mean, maybe part of it is that I'm immersed so much in the forums, and the information,
and also a significant amount of time people are just promoting their own thing. They're like, check out this guy's cool thing, and it's their own channel.
That's absolutely true.
I mean, that's not always bad.
Listen, it's not always bad. You people hustle where they can, and I think, if we were in a different position, I might be tempted to do the same. My problem is I spend so much time playing Injustice and so much time reading about it, where I can get the information faster on the forums. Like, let's say there's a new challenge or something's happening. It's easier to do that than to wait for somebody to put up a video anyways. And I have to be a little bit biased, I guess. I like our channel better than most.
That's true. So we can recommend a lot of non-Injustice channels, but we can't actually recommend any other Injustice channels.
Yeah.
The style of content that we watch actually isn't too similar to our own.
I think part of the reason we even started doing this was because we didn't see what we wanted to watch about Injustice originally.
Yeah.
And I think we're, I don't know, odd. We do stuff a little differently. So
yeah.
And I guess if they hadn't burnt us so badly, where we got our account suspended, we sent in a ticket, or submitted a ticket to support.
And it's been months now.
August. I submitted a ticket, I think, originally in August, and it's been, is it August or October? I know it was sometime last year. It's been months and months. Anyways, so sorry.
We're not interested.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how many other YouTubers spend a bunch of time watching YouTube.
I don't know. I think it depends on what kind of stuff you're making. I know a lot of other people like comedy and stuff, or the more entertainment side of it, watch a lot of each other's stuff.
That makes sense, especially since there's more opportunities there for collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, great minds think alike, Jinx.
But anyways, there it is. Our next question comes from Jonathan Welch, and they say the most efficient pack to buy while keeping your money is the challenge pack. And I guess technically this isn't a question,
right? But
in our long kind of standing tradition, but
the commentary I want to bring up, this is actually a really excellent point. That's probably true, and I'd forgotten about this because with the power creep, not only are they stronger, but they're also more expensive.
Yeah.
So some of them cost almost 500,000 credits per promotion, and that means you're potentially getting almost 150,000 value if you're getting one of the newer characters.
Which is great.
For each pack you buy, right.
That's so good. So it's not, obviously, because it's not as expensive, it's not for actually using the glitch itself, but for spending your money down to use the glitch.
Right, so if you're selling it to get back later, then you could, depending on how lucky you are, you could get close to your value in cards that you can sell back later.
Close to parity, yeah. So, and also you have to keep in mind the other cards you get with it. Or do you get with challenge pack? Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem will be that there's certain characters that aren't worth a lot. I'm thinking Elseworld Flash, now off the top of my head I can't remember how much he cost, but I think it was something like, it was less than 200,000. So if
piddly.
So if you're gonna get him, good character,
you've wasted a lot of credits.
You're gonna be burning a lot of your credits and getting back. So definitely might be worth looking at how large a proportion of the newer guys you get, and see how much money it's recoverable. But I still think it's a hard sell to justify getting rid of credits just to use a credit glitch. But last laugh ticket with the challenge pack, probably worth it.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. I guess at the end of the day, that wasn't a question as much as us saying that was a smart thing that you said.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure everybody else heard that, so anybody who's listening would have an idea of how to take it, because that's the biggest question. Yeah. People are saying, how do I take advantage of the glitch if I got too many credits?
How do I get rid of all my credits? Yeah. But how do I get rid of them and then get them back later?
Basically, yeah, that's the implied part. Yep.
Our next question comes from YUCK FASUO, and they say, how do I counter random teams in MP with Tantu Totem if I was using special avoiding characters such as Injustice 2 Superman, Reverse Flash, Wally West, or Dawn of Justice Batman? Using their passives will make Tantu Totem regain power or block the specials with no health left.
Well, some of them are easier than others, right? Because in Justice 2 Superman, if you block, take the damage, they won't regain their power.
Yeah.
And then you can have at them. But the biggest answer when you're really totally avoiding specials, it depends entirely on the refractory period after they drop a special that does no damage.
Yeah, for sure.
So if there's... Oftentimes when they do a special, they don't do your opponents, at least the AI, won't do a special again right away. It buys you a little bit of time. So you can either knock them out or drain some of their power or swap in somebody who's going to take nothing. Like somebody, if you haven't used your Astro Harness, the 100% no damage thing, you come in and you suck up another one and it buys you a little bit more time to do something else.
Yeah.
But the other way of doing it is, this isn't your entire team, right? So you could use other people. Somebody maybe have a tank with a complete fourth row gear set.
Or I guess we're assuming this isn't your whole team. Technically, you could have all special avoiding characters on your team.
I guess that's true.
Technically.
Yeah, technically. But I think it gets boring pretty fast that way. We've done that as a style,
for sure.
Right?
For sure. We're just moving forward. This probably isn't your whole team.
Right.
Yeah.
So Containment to Suit Doomsday becomes really great. When he takes damage, it's like his health is partitioned off. Like he's got a big pool of health, but it's partitioned off in chunks. So they do the damage, he can eat it, and he'll still have a whole bunch left. He'll have a couple of rebirths left.
Yeah.
Fourth row gear set effectively does the same thing once, or somebody's carrying it. And blocking gear becomes really important because you can stack blocking up to a non-zero number, where you can reduce the damage. So that's actually useful because then you block and take the damage instead of trying to avoid it with somebody, say, like Injustice 2 Superman. Blackest Night Hawkgirl gets more important too because she gives the resurrections for her Blackest Night teammates. So the Blackest Night team gets a little bit more interesting when the Tantu Totem rolls out.
Yeah.
And the basic answer is that it's anybody who can act as a meat shield, eat the damage from a special without getting knocked out. Because, if you get knocked out, clearly that's not going to help you. You'll get the power back, and then it's just next guy up.
For sure. So there we go. And our final question comes from Moon Naveed, and they say, every time I'm using Breakthrough Glitch on iOS, I'm getting banned within a few days. Is it just with me or everyone else too? Sorry, with just me. Same meaning, but
Yep.
I transpose those words.
All right, so we actually asked a few more questions. It turns out that based on what they are doing, that the issue is Moon's got one account, it was suspended, and Moon has been using a glitch to duplicate the account.
And then the new account gets suspended because in some way they're intrinsically tied together. So when
exactly.
When you're making copies of accounts, you actually don't. There's no real advantage we found, which is why we don't actually have.
We don't advocate it.
Because it's work, and at the end of the day, from what we've seen, is they're all chained together in some way that screwing up one of them will screw up all of them. So it gives you a false sense of security, but it doesn't actually let you do anything with it.
What I wanted to, as a takeoff point from this question, was that you can see from the question, it seems like a relatively straightforward question.
Yeah.
Except all the stuff that's not there. So based on our experience, we know enough to know that when you have an account that's banned, it's cloned, or duplicated, it's marked. It's going to get banned again, even if you do nothing.
Yeah.
So the difficulty with troubleshooting a lot of time is, especially when people are asking us questions that give us a piece of information that they think is all that matters, all the other stuff that's missing is actually critical.
Yeah.
And so
in this case, using a completely safe glitch, right, is what you thought the issue was. And that's fair if you don't actually have any kind of context of understanding, right? You can't be expected to actually know everything that will get you banned, right? So that's not actually really your fault. But what makes it very difficult in a lot of cases for us is we have no clue, because we know almost for sure when we see the question it's not that, because it couldn't just be you, right? That's not realistic, but we don't actually know specifically what it is getting you banned. We don't actually know, anything about that, and it's the way getting banned within a few days every time you do a new account for breakthrough. The idea that you're doing breakthrough that early in an account is really the thing that's probably most useful in diagnosing it.
Now that what that makes me think of is how feedback. So when you get feedback on what you're doing, what most people, I guess, is this a logical assumption? They make the temporal association. So if something happens quickly, then they associate it with what's happening. But if it happens late enough, which is what happens, you don't get banned immediately. If it's delayed by a day or so, then all of a sudden all that sort of causal connection is lost.
Murkier, because there's so many other things you've done. If you do something and you immediately get punished for it, it's like, oh, I did a thing and I got punished. If it's later, you're like, well, I did 20 things in the past day. Yes. And it's like, is it the most recent thing I did? Is it something in the past week, the past month, right?
Right. And that's why some of this stuff is so hard when you do glitches like that, and why some of them are way more difficult to actually test because of the time commitment required to do just one thing, wait a couple days, and then see. I mean,
and make sure nothing happened. Yeah, because it could be like the next time you go online, or some other trigger for them to check through your account, like maybe even like season rewards or something. You never know when they're actually checking to ban you, because it's not instant for a lot of online bans.
Right. So some of the requests we get is saying, well, can you test this out to see if this will get your account suspended? It's
hard.
That's what she said.
And also, if it ends up working, then we've got an account suspended.
Yeah, that's
also not ideal.
Okay, so what fight are we on now? I wasn't entirely paying attention. We've been moving actually at a pretty good clip, because that was our last question for this week. But I also wanted to make a few recommendations if we could. Yeah. Oh, so we've got we've got 3 more fights. Okay,
still got a while to go.
So what I wanted to mention, it turns out that recently there's a TV show called Altered Carbon.
Yeah, it's a Netflix original.
Came out in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I've seen ads for it, and I only recently realized that it's the same Altered Carbon, the book that I actually read and enjoyed. Yeah, it was really good. It's like a sci-fi noir,
cyberpunk. It's very gritty.
Yeah,
it's got a real edge to it. It is a roller coaster. It is so much fun reading, but not like popcorn. It's just very dark.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the show yet. I looked up the reviews. The reviews are mediocre.
Oh, that's too bad.
I think it's like a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, that sucks.
But that's 67% positive reviewed by critics. So that's not that's generally favorable. It's not actually there's no consensus on it, but more than half of the critics who watched it enjoyed it.
What do you think? All right, so how do you feel about when something that you love is translated into another medium, and it can be either good or bad or ugly?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, I don't mind too much. What always disappoints me is the waste of opportunity, because when something good is kind of redone and it's bad, they're probably not going to redo it good again. I feel like for that stuff, a lot of times you get what it amounts to is you've got one shot to not screw it up,
right?
And if you screwed it up, then that's it for that, right? Like Death Note was a really good show,
right?
And then they did the live action one, and it wasn't terrible. It was pretty bad. It was just barely enjoyable enough that I didn't feel like my time was wasted watching it. But compared to the original Death Note, which was really kind of genius and clever and cool in a lot of different ways, it was super, super disappointing, especially in comparison. And what was the worst part about it was, they're not going to make another Death Note movie. I was okay with them having not made one, but now that I know that they've blown the shot, it feels like a waste.
I part of me thinks if I were more of a hipster and less of a fan, I wouldn't mind so much, because then I would still know that this one thing was good and nobody else would know it would still be a secret. But I actually want more people to enjoy stuff. When I like something, if the show turns out to be crap, then
it's not as likely to get people to see
read
the good
book.
thing. Yeah.
So I know it when a bad movie or bad TV show is made of a book that I love, it doesn't screw up the book. The book stays the same no matter what, right? So it changes nothing about the book, except the audience.
That's true.
So it's and I totally agree with you, audience sauce. Although Dirk Gently, apparently, I found this out. I was really enjoying Dirk Gently, the Netflix.
Yeah, it was really good, which has been canceled, unfortunately.
Right, but there was a previous version made on I think
BBC. I think. Yeah, no, I saw that. I saw there was an old Dirk Gently TV series too, and it's also all based on the book by Douglas Adams. I don't actually know how good the book is. The good news is, if the book is better, I'll have watched a TV show first, which was really cool and really weird, but like a really enjoyable experience. Sometimes just because one thing is worse doesn't mean that they're not both good.
I think it's harder to go the other way around. So that when you've read something really good and then watch the show, it's easier to be disappointed than to watch a show and then read the book, because the books tend to be richer and have more.
Yeah, have more details for sure. There's more stuff that you can do, and you don't have to be constrained by your budget, right? Because you need a certain budget to do certain special effects, and you need a certain budget to do certain locations and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And for a book, you just need a certain quality of writing to pull it off.
Yeah, so just a reminder, Altered Carbon's first in a series of 3. It's by Richard K. Morgan. And, I wish I'd actually prepared for this and made notes, because I know that one of the other books is Woken Furies. I can't remember what the other book in the trilogy was, but they're all good. Excellent.
Yeah, and so that's the recommendation for the books and not the TV show. We're aware of the TV show existing. We can't actually specifically say one way or the other whether it's any good.
And that was the fight.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. So
there we go. That's going to be the end of the video. This is where we would normally say our outro, but we're going to pass it off to Alberto. Alberto, take it away.
Alberto Jr. Camarillo, here to address the masses. Komodo.